Yes.
When should you get your septic?
Good question.
I understand they're only good for a limited time, not
So
a
they're
limited number of years.
Good for 2 years.
2 years, I thought it was 3.
It's 3 years only if you pump every year once you get that report. So a lot of people, I don't know in the room, who pumps every year? Most people pump, good for you. 'Cause I pump every year. Yeah, I think it's great. So,
Actually, you do get a Starbucks card.
I know. It's actually, I personally think it's actually really good to pump every year. You avoid any issues, because you can't believe, I live on Preservation Way, and the number of houses that failed completely on Preservation Way was shocking to me. You get the problems early. But if you don't pump every year and you do a Title V, then it'll only be good for 2 years. But once you get the Title V from Lewis Starbucks and you pump every year, it's good, it will extend it that extra year.
So the Title V inspection, if you pass it, is good for 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
But if you pump it every year, that gets extended.
That's right, yep.
No, what I was saying earlier is that if you're using a 3-year-old Title V report, buyers do look at that and get a little concerned because it's 3 years old. So ideally,
It's still good.
It's still good. I'm not saying it's not, but I'm just saying if I'm representing a buyer and you're handing me a 3-year-old Title V report, I'm pointing that out to them and I'm raising it as a concern. So we generally like it to be within a year to 2, like a year or 2 of when you're really legitimately thinking of selling.
So just piggybacking off the septic, how many are on well here? Okay, this is for the well people. In Westford now, you're required as a seller to do water testing at the time you go to sell your house. But the question is, and there's no more Starbucks card, but I'll mail you one, because this is a pet peeve of mine, who's responsible for fixing any issues with the well water test results? The buyer or the seller? Because with the septic, it's the seller, unless you negotiate, otherwise that's another whole nother story. But in town, and I've had this discussion with them many times, they said, we don't want to put the, oh, do you want to answer the question, do you know? They say, we don't want to put that burden on the seller, because we already put the burden of the septic on the seller. So that we're putting the burden on the seller to do the well water testing, but not on correcting any issue. So then that becomes a whole big issue in negotiating who's to fix that. And I just think they should put it on the seller, because they put the septic on the seller, but that's a different thingy. And so you don't have to fix it, you just have to hand in that report, the well water. You have to do that at the time. Right,
Now I
Roy?
have a question. So, back to the septic thing. So, I live by myself, and every time I have them come and pump, they say, you don't need to pump, you know, your tank is not full of stuff. So if that's historically what I've got, sporadic pumping, do you just need to get a Title V before you sell, and then you're good to go?
Yes.
So none of the
If
pumping
you
records
pass.
matter?
If you pass.
Yeah.
Right? So a lot of septics in Westford recently have conditional passes. And that means usually there's a crack in the D-box or something's not quite right. So you have to fix that one issue versus replacing the whole thing.
Yep.
And the water test needs to be done how much earlier than before selling?
It's done at the time you do the septic. I think it has to be within 6 months.
Okay.
Now that I say that, yeah.